Hey, Katrina here from Scrappy Horses. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to share with you a project that I have made for my music studio, and I was inspired by the challenge over at Path of Positivity. Later on in the video I'm going to share more about that challenge and invite you to come and play along with us because I know you'll want to play along. So let's get started. I started by making a frame for my project. I just used some old photo mat board that had been cut away from the centers of photo mats, and I painted it with gold metallic paint. Now I'll tell you, I did use about 3 to 4 coats of that paint to get it as solid gold as I liked it. Now while the gold paint was drying, I moved on to my next layer, and I'm just using a sponge and I'm painting some black paint onto a piece of cardboard that I have just cut on a paper cutter. I just cut a piece of box into this rectangular piece of cardboard. Now I'm coming in with some Holtz Espresso paint, and I'm just sort of rubbing it on, no rhyme or reason, just to give it a little more texture and a little bit of color. Now I'm going to mix up a color that I'm going to take and use over this for another layer. You're going to see that it just took me a long time to mix it up the way I like it. I used several different colors. I put in some refiller ink from Close to My Heart, added a little bit of water to it. I actually threw some cocoa ink on there. I did lots of different things to get the color that I liked. I also threw a little gold in there. And I couldn't get it like I liked it, so I started just rubbing it on, and then I was rubbing it off, and I went back and forth until I finally came up with this texture. Now I'm adding some Bow Bunny spritz over the top. Here I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that I gathered together. Now I did not use everything that I have here, but this is sort of how my brain works when I work on a big piece like this. I just start collecting things that I think I might like, and I start putting them together. Now this little picture here is from Luna Girls, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that up there for you so you can see where that came from. I didn't end up using the gears or this ribbon, but I thought I might because I was going with sort of golds and blacks and browns along with some green. I used quite a few Prima Flowers in this. This oboe cut is one I designed and cut myself in Cricut Design Space. Here I'm showing you this piece of packaging because I actually used it to back the little piece from Luna Girls. I thought the color was perfect. I had splattered some gold paint on it accidentally earlier, but it was going to work out just fine for this project. Taking some Ranger Distress Oxide Vintage Photo, and I knew I wanted to use some lace on my project. So I came in and I started cutting this lace. Although I think this lace is very pretty, it was just too long for my project. So I decided to cut it away and sort of tailor it to what I wanted for my project. Now, it was a little bit too stark white for my project because I wanted it to look a little more vintage. So I came in with this vintage photo and I tried rubbing it directly over the lace, and I didn't like the way that worked. So I ended up putting some onto my glass mat, pouring a little bit of water on there, and then you'll just see me come in with my finger and sort of slosh that around and mix it up. And then I just basically used the lace to clean it all up, and that colored it pretty much the way I liked. So I left it like that to dry, and that's all I ended up doing. I ended up liking it once it was dry. So I cleaned that all up to make sure that I don't get part of my project in there. And I go ahead and I start inking some other pieces. Now I decided that my ink was just a little harsh, so I just grabbed a piece of scrap paper off my table and started taking a little off. All right, so I went on and I inked up all of my different pieces. This is also from Cricut Design Space. I believe it's from a cartridge called Wedding, Vintage Wedding, I believe. I'm using some champagne colored ink here from Close to My Heart, and I'm just sort of filling out some more. This is New England Ivy. I believe these colors are retired. And I went around the edges and got them nice and dark so they would show through the other piece a little better. This is another little lacy border that I cut in from Design Space on my Cricut. And I'm inking out the edges in that New England Ivy because I'm going to be putting the green on top of it. Now I will tell you, I didn't get this on tape, but after I put this ribbon on the top, I ran it through my Embossabilities machine with a folder, and it's actually an Excalibur machine with an Embossabilities folder to give it a little bit of texture. It's not a lot, but it was a little. Now here's that little oboe that I designed. Some of the holes didn't quite poke out for my keys, so I'm just poking those out with a little pokey tool it's also from Close to My Heart. Now I wanted some gold behind that. Now I will tell you that my oboe does not have gold keys. It has silver keys, but I like the idea of gold for this project. So I used some of that Deco Foil. I just cut a little strip on some tape there. I used a razor blade. Please be careful using razor blades. I use them all the time, but if you're not comfortable, you can just cut them with scissors. Anyway, going on, all you do is rub that tape over the foil and it picks it right up. And then there was enough stickiness left on that tape that I could just rub it really hard there. And it stuck to the back side of that oboe. Probably if I were going to leave it alone, I would want to do some more with that, but since I'm going to be gluing it onto the back of the project anyway, there was enough sticky there to hold it until I glued it. I used my Zig two-way pen as well as Fabri-Tac and some strips of double-sided tape here to glue this large piece on. You'll see that I use Fabri-Tac over glue on a lot of my larger pieces. I do this because the tape tends to grab, and if I don't get it placed perfectly, then I'm out of luck. I mean, it grabs fast. So what I do is I put the tape on so it will grab. Then I add the glue and it gives me wiggle room so I can slide those around. Here I'm just working on another embellishment that I cut. Now it's time to work on those letters. I cut this out of vinyl black, and it took me a little while to get them all out carefully, but if you weed through the letters carefully, you can get them out without tearing. Just take your time. Cut this in Design Space also. All right, now this little keyboard. This little keyboard was a fun little embellishment I wanted to add. I cut it in Design Space also. I decided to cut it out of vinyl, and I was going to just put it on that little piece of cardboard. I knew I would never get it straight, so I laid it down on that paper. I cut around it and then glued that onto the cardstock. These are large sheets of double-sided tape. Now this is where I'm putting my basic piece onto my gold frame. So I didn't want this to come apart. So I used this double-sided tape from scrapbook.com, and it's just huge pieces of tape. Now again, I'm using that Fabri-Tac over it and then securing it in place. That way if I was off a little bit, I can move it. Now, I design everything on the computer. Everything. I just sit at my computer, listen to music, and go to town designing. Then I basically just copy my own design with what I have. So I already knew what my layout was. I don't know the exact sizes like of my Prima Flowers or of my laces. So there's sometimes an element of surprise when I get over to the craft table, but not a lot. So that's why I never lay out in front of you. Like some designers, you watch them lay out and you get to hear their thought process. I just do it all on computer So my thought process all happens there. So here I am again, laying down the glue over the tape. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on that dark layer there. This paper that I used to cut the vintage banner here is from Decosse's Dynamite Doodles. Really fun music sheet there. Now I knew I wanted this smaller little piece underneath that banner, but I forgot briefly. And so it was a good thing I could lift that up. Nice thing about using that glue over the tape. So here we are back to this fun vintage piece, Luna Girls. I pulled in that white piece of scrap paper there to protect that photo. I can't tell you how many times I've had to reprint photos because I've laid them down in ink. So I've learned now just to lay some white paper down whenever I do. There's that Prima packaging. It says where memories are created. And I thought that would just be perfect under that. So I'm going to go ahead and again tape and glue that onto this green. Now the color of that green cardstock you're seeing is a darker color but the same sort of hue. Maybe that's not the right word, but it's that color green but a little bit lighter in my music studio. So I thought, ooh, that's going to be a nice match for there. So there's that piece of lace that I colored that I want to lay over. And the music banner that's going to cover up that little bit of print that I did not want. This piece from Luna Girl Images is actually a longer rectangular piece, and it celebrates the new year, and it's got a really fun harbor scene below. But that's not what I wanted for my music studio. And that's the nice thing about working with digital pieces. You can size them up and then cut them and use just what you want to use. All right, I'm placing my letters on here. This worked out pretty nicely because the burlap has a texture and my lines were pretty straight, so I could just follow that straight burlap texture to get my words in there. Get the letters in straight. Here you're seeing me struggle a little bit with my Prima Flower because I'm wanting to squish up a little bit and it's not wanting to squish up. But I finally fixed it. Later on when I came back, I glued these black pieces in and I scrunched those black petals in a little closer. You can probably see that in the finished product, and it gave them a little more dimension then too when I scrunched them up. I'm going ahead and gluing in my oboe there. So we all know that angels really played oboes and not trumpets. That's just a joke for all my oboe and trumpet friends. All right, now I'm placing a few little black vinyl notes. Now I came in and I found these music Prima Flowers that I have. And I really like them, and I thought, oh, those would be perfect. Again, I'm going to move my project far away here before I start doing the tips of that flower in black. That Memento black ink, let me tell you, that stuff, it's black, and it goes everywhere. So you can see little specks of it there, so I didn't want that falling onto my project. This is kind of a glitter glitz gel from Close to My Heart. Not sure if they still sell it or not, but I really like it. And I can tell you I've had it a long time and I use it quite often and it never dries up or anything. It's a great product. I like it. Here you can see that I'm just measuring where I want my chain to go. I know that a lot of antique pieces were hung by gold chains. My grandma had quite a few actually. So I wanted to apply this. I used some Gorilla Glue. I'm a big fan of E6000, but I was out. So I went to my husband and said, can I borrow some of your Gorilla Glue? And I like this Gorilla Glue. Wow, wow, wow. Does it really stick fast? And the metal onto the cardboard, the photo frame board was great. I'm just putting a couple of pieces of felt here just so I don't scratch the wall. I'm usually not real particular about that kind of thing, but I thought, oh, it's a pretty chunky chain. It might. All right, so there it is. I decided I wanted to add this little button. Remember we saw the little cogs earlier? Well, I decided I wanted to add this clock button. I'm kind of a time fanatic. I like time. I like clocks and such. So I wanted to add that, and I put a little bit of the burlap that I had torn away from the bottom, and I put it there along with some gold thread underneath it. And I just laid it down and then used my Fabri-Tac and put that over that button and just set that in there. And you can see where I set the little flower that I put the gold edge around. Here's where I go ahead and I add a little bit of gold around the photo, just to add a little bit of sparkle. It's not a lot. It just catches the light just barely, just slightly. So there it is, my finished piece. I'm going to back out here with the camera. And I hope you enjoyed this project. I promised I would tell you more about the Path of Positivity. Yes, we have wonderful challenges over there with great prizes, and I welcome you to come and join us. We are a true anything goes challenge, and I mean anything positive goes. We love to see needle crafting, poetry, music, paper crafts, multimedia projects, just whatever you can come up with. If you write poetry, if you quilt, share it with us. We'd love to see it. And we have lots of prizes every month. I will go ahead and give you the link to Path of Positivity. You can come check us out. Anything goes as long as it's positive, and your blog is also positive. Thanks for joining me. Any questions, please leave them in the box below. I'm more than happy to answer. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.